Picture this. It's March 5th, 1973. High in the clouds over France, two airliners collide. One plane is utterly destroyed, falling from the sky. The other, somehow against all odds, manages to land. This is the story of how a series of systemic failures backed one flight crew into a corner and forced them to make a choice, where there was no right answer.
Okay, let's just break this down for a second. On one side, you have Iberia Flight 504, 68 people on board, 0 survivors. On the other, Spantax Flight 400, 107 people on board, and 107 survivors? How on earth does that happen? How can a mid-air collision have two such wildly different outcomes?
So what in the world happened up there? What possible chain of events could lead to one plane surviving what should have been certain doom while the other was completely lost? To figure that out, we have to go back to the beginning of that fateful day. All right, let's rewind. It's March 5th, 1973. We've got two separate flights, both heading from sunny Spain up to London, and their routes are about to take them right over western France.
So here's the setup. We have Iberia Flight 504 and Spantax Flight 400. Now they were both routed to the exact same spot on the sky, a navigational point near the city of Nantes. But here's the kicker. They were assigned the same altitude, flight level 290, which is 29,000 feet. And you guessed it, they were set to arrive there at almost the exact same time. They were quite literally on a collision course.
So you're probably thinking, wait, why would air traffic controllers create such a dangerous situation? Well, that's the thing. This wasn't a normal day. There was a massive disruption happening on the ground that was about to have deadly consequences in the air.
France's civilian air traffic controllers were on strike. The very people who are trained to manage this incredibly complex and busy airspace, they were off the job, protesting working conditions and pension plans. So in response, the French government kicked in its emergency backup, something called the Clement-Moreau Plan. Essentially, they handed control of the entire country's airspace over to the military. Suddenly, you have military controllers using military gear and military rules, trying to manage thousands of civilian passenger jets. And their system was dangerously different from the one it was replacing.
And the problems started showing up immediately. For one, military rules required double the vertical separation between planes, which basically cut the available airspace in half. On top of that, their radios were less reliable, their radar had huge gaps in coverage, and the military controllers just weren't familiar with standard civilian terms. Each one of these was another crack forming in the foundation of the safety system.
Okay, so we've got this fragile makeshift system in place. Now let's watch how it all starts to unravel. A series of miscommunications is about to back the pilots of the Spantax flight into a corner with absolutely no good way out.
Just listen to this countdown. At 1:40 p.m., the Spantax crew gets a really strange order. They need to delay their arrival over Nantes by 8 minutes, even though they're less than 10 minutes away. So they try to radio back that they're slowing down, but the message is garbled. The signal is awful. By 1:49, they realize there's no way they can slow down enough in time. So they do the standard thing. They ask for permission to enter a holding pattern, to just circle and wait. The controller can't understand them. They try again. Nothing. Silence. It's now 1:51. They are just 1 minute away from that intersection point, and they are completely cut off from ATC. They have to do something. They make a choice. Turn the plane. 1 minute later, impact.
So, put yourself in that cockpit for a second. You can't slow down enough to obey your last instruction. You can't get permission to do anything else. Do you break a rule and fly straight ahead, right on time, into a point where you know another plane might be? Or do you break another core rule of aviation and turn without permission? This was the impossible choice they faced. There was no right answer.
They chose what they thought was the safer option. They turned. But they were flying in thick clouds, so neither crew could see the other plane. That turn put the Spantax jet directly in the path of the Iberia flight, which was coming up from behind and to their right. The very tip of the Spantax plane's left wing sliced right through the cockpit and cabin of the DC-9.
For the Iberia flight, it was over in a horrifying instant. But for the Spantax flight, the terror was just getting started. The aftermath raised immediate questions. And, of course, the search for who to blame began almost before the wreckage even hit the ground.
The human cost was just devastating. All 68 people on the Iberia flight, every single passenger and crew member, were lost as their plane broke apart in midair. Meanwhile, on the Spantax flight, it was absolute chaos.
The plane lurched and dropped like a stone, alarms were screaming, and the pilots were fighting with everything they had to regain control. A massive piece of their left wing was just gone. But somehow, they wrestled the crippled jet out of its dive and started desperately looking for a place to land.
And if you want to understand the sheer terror of that flight, just listen to this quote from a survivor. A little girl asks her father, "Daddy, do you think we are going to make it?" And he replies, "I rather doubt it, darling." I mean, can you even imagine? Your own father, the person meant to reassure you, believes you're not going to make it. It's just chilling. And yet, miraculously, they did. That crew performed an incredible feat of airmanship and landed the plane safely at a French military airbase.
And you know what happens next, right? The finger-pointing begins. The official reaction was fast and defensive. French officials immediately said the controller's strike had nothing to do with it. The military pointed the finger squarely at the Spantax crew, accusing the captain of disobeying orders and turning without permission. All the focus was on that final action, not on the broken system that forced them to take it.
But the truth is rarely that simple, is it? As investigators started digging deeper into the wreckage and recordings, a much more complex and, frankly, damning picture began to emerge. This wasn't a story about a single rogue pilot. It was about an entire system that had failed.
So the investigation starts, and it's like pulling on a thread. What was first called pilot error was slowly revealed to be a whole chain reaction. The terrible radios, the confusing rules, the communication breakdown, it all pointed to huge fundamental flaws in that emergency plan. The fault didn't lie with one person. It was with the entire system they were forced to operate in.
And in the end, the official French investigation came to a stunning conclusion. They said the pilots were truly, genuinely backed into a corner. No matter what they did, fly straight or turn, they would have been violating an order. It was a classic no-win scenario, created entirely by a failing system.
So how do we make sure this never, ever happens again? Well, the answer is a piece of technology called TCAS. Think of it as an electronic safety net. It's a system on the plane, completely independent of the ground, that lets planes talk directly to each other. If it senses another plane getting too close, it gives both pilots a direct, simple command. One plane gets climb, the other gets descend.
And that is the incredible legacy of tragedies like the one over Nantes. TCAS takes that impossible human choice out of the equation. If the Spantax and Iberia crews had had this technology, TCAS would have seen the conflict long before they got close, and it would have given them clear, automated instructions to avoid each other. It provides a clean, unambiguous technological solution.
The next time you get on a plane, it's worth remembering this story. Modern air travel is unbelievably safe, but not by accident. It's safe because we learned incredibly hard lessons from disasters like this one. It really makes you wonder, what other invisible safety nets, born from past tragedies, are out there protecting us every single day?